Well, good morning, Sierra. My first take on this from the beginning is that, and what I commented on was that it is as important to eliminate suspects as it is to find the right one. And in this case, I don't. Again, my commentary is based on what I'm reading and what's been released, and there are many things these detectives know that we do not know. So, based on the people that have been ruled out at this point, we have to take at face value that the detectives have done their due diligence to, for whatever reasons, eliminate those people as suspects. And when we have the father has come out and made statements about he's not confident in the police investigation. Some of the other family members and himself are talking about these people that have been eliminated were eliminated too quickly, in his view. And I understand that, certainly. I think the biggest problem with this entire investigation from the beginning has been the pitfalls of something like this when you have a department and you have an administration that is not used to this kind of an event occurring in their city. And so the communication becomes very convoluted, and it leaves the appearance that the police are not competent, that they're not saying the things they should be saying, or they're saying some things they shouldn't be saying, and then they say something and they retract it. So it's all a big, to address specific issues within the investigation, it all, kind of begins at the beginning, right? And when all those miscommunications start to occur, then it causes family members a lot of angst and starts them questioning the police and what they're doing, and are they competent in what they're doing, and so forth and so on. So it's a multi-layered investigation, and the results of which and the things that are being released become multi-layered as well, and the responses to those things also. So
Yeah, I think something really important to note here too is that investigators likely know way more than we know at this point. They're keeping some things close to the vest for their investigation. Is that something that you would say is accurate?
well, yeah, and that's important. I know in my experience, I've had multiple fatality scenes, and of course those are very high profile, and there are just certain parts of the investigation, and there's evidence in the investigation that is not going to be revealed to the public. And you have to maintain the integrity of that investigation. What you don't want happening is releasing something that you should not have as the detective in the investigation. And then we find out later that bit of information that was released did compromise the integrity of the investigation and caused it to slow down or stop or hinder the apprehension of a suspect. So, I mean, I understand the criticism, but then again, having been on the other side of it, and I understand completely how these families feel, how the public feels. I get it, but I can tell you that there are just certain aspects that have got to be, as you put it, held close to the vest.
Yeah, exactly. Just to maintain the integrity of that investigation. So, a lot of things here are still a question mark. I mean, this is an unsolved case nearly 1 month after it actually happened. But there are some things that we do know for a fact that all of the victims were on the second or third floor, but the two surviving people, the roommates, were on the first floor. But we also know there was no sign of forced entry. Now, we've heard a lot of back and forth about whether the house was targeted or if someone inside was. So, does this make you think that one of the four victims inside was, in fact, the target?
Well, that word target has been bandied about quite a bit. I have used it in my commentary, of course, and I've tried to explain it the way I look at an investigation like this is that clearly this is a big time whodunit. It's not a smoking gun, right? So when I use the term targeted, it is apparent to me, and again, I'm just speaking with what I have read and what I know and what we all know, that the person who did this was focused on those four individuals. Now, was there somebody within that group that they were more focused on? I think that yet to remains to be seen. But today, there's some commentary about how I think it's Kaylee had more. The wounds were much more extreme than on the young lady she was with, and what I have read is that they were in the same room together. Now, I may have misread that, but I believe that's what I've read. And that could mean a couple of things. Number one, it could mean that the attack was on the other young lady first, and Kaylee woke up and began to fight. And so when that happens, that ratchets it up the attack, and the attacker had to put Kaylee down because she was, and I don't know if she's one of the ones that had defensive wounds on her or not, but there has been information put out there that there were some defensive wounds on some of the victims. So that could mean that she woke up, and that's why the attack on her is more vicious, because she was fighting. So that, again, that ratchets up the attack, and that may explain why she's got more extreme wounds on her. Now, the other side of that is, of course, that she was the target among these people, and that's why that attack was more vicious. And the other young lady was attacked secondarily, but then that doesn't explain why do we go upstairs and kill the couple that was, from all intents and purposes that we know, wasn't aware of what was going on the second floor. So again, it causes a lot of questions, and I would, in a stabbing, I'm sure the detectives have done this, you should be able to see some sort of transfer of blood. You should be able to get an idea of where the attack started and then where it went to, and plot the path of this suspect through that structure and get a pattern of the way it unfolded. And that would be, some of that may be realized with DNA testing and so forth and so on, because if we have mixtures of victims' blood in those two separate bedroom areas, then it might give an indication of the order of things that occurred.
The facts of the case that we know right now. We know that these homicides occurred in the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th. Around noon, Moscow officers received a call of an unconscious person. Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves inside the residence on King Road. The four were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time. There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. Investigators are continuing to collect evidence at the scene. Investigators are working to develop a timeline to relevant events. Autopsies are taking place today on all the victims so we can continue to gather evidence and solve the crime. Investigators are working to follow up on all leads and to identify a person of interest. Based on details at the scene, we believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there. We cannot say that there's no threat to the community, and as we have stated, please stay vigilant, report any suspicious activity, and be aware of your surroundings at all times. What we don't know, the identity and location of the suspect, the location of the knife or any clothing that was worn by the suspect. Currently, we have 25 plus investigators working this case, as well as assistance from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Idaho State Police. We're reviewing video that has been collected, but we are asking citizens to contact us with any information you may have that will help in this investigation. Once again, we're asking anyone with a tip to call the tip line at 208-883-7180. At this time, I would like to introduce the University of Idaho President, Scott Green.
Thank you, Chief Fry. I'm Scott Green, President of the University of Idaho, and with me is Tori Lawrence. He's our Provost, and Blaine Eccles, our Dean of Students, will be available for questions after all of the statements are made. The crime, to us, this crime and the loss of these young lives is just simply beyond comprehension. While our small community is certainly not immune to such things, it's not a situation our close-knit campus is used to dealing with. First, my deepest condolences to the families. And friends of Ethan, Kaylee, Zena, and Madison. Excuse me. Their loss has been devastating, and they were bright lights in our community, and are deeply missed and remain in our thoughts and our prayers. We've been working with Moscow police since we were notified on Sunday of the crime. We've helped when asked and continually push for information whenever possible, knowing that we cannot interfere with the important work and good investigations that are occurring. We just want justice for these victims.
This time, I'm going to open it up to some questions that I'm sure you have, and we'll do the best we can to answer those for you.
Hello, Chief Ray.
Hello.
Thank you for having us. I'm Amanda Rowley with Crime 2 News. You mentioned that there's an indication that it's an isolated, targeted incident, and there is an individual somewhere. Can you give us a reason as to why there's that belief there is a suspect? And can you also give a little more information on the forced entry? There's no sign of forced entry, but was the door, did it seem like any of the entries were left unlocked by any means?
I'll answer the last part there just because it's at the front end of my mind. We're not 100% sure if the door was unlocked, but there was no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
And my first question,
Yeah.
if you'd like me to read.
No, I think I have it. In these cases, we take the totality of the things that we see, and they're very dynamic, right? And they're very big, and there's a lot of information, and we try to take that information, and some of it we can't share with you, correct? But we try to take that information, we try to make the best educated decision we can. We review that as a team with our detectives, along with our prosecutors, along with the university, and we try to make that best decision on that. So we, at that time, believed that there was no a threat, and our goal is to provide safety for this community. That's why we're bringing in the resources we're bringing. We want it close to this, and we want to do everything we can to let the people in our community know that we care. We want them to feel safe. We want them to be safe, and we're going to do everything we can to do that.
And if I could add one more question. You asked for videos or anything from the community to help put together that timeline. We obtained a copy of Twitch video, and family members of the Gonsalves family were able to identify Maddie and Kaylee in those videos at a food truck ordering food. Is the police department, our investigators, aware of that video, and has it helped put together that timeline?
We are aware of that video, and it has helped. It gives us a time and space where we know that two of our victims were, and that helps us a ton, and we'll continue to follow up all leads that we can and continue to gather those.
Any indication of a party at the home that night?
This will be the last one, okay, I understand. Not that we know of, not at the home. We know that the other, let me get the names exactly right here. We know that Zena and Ethan were at a different party on campus. but that timeline will still help us if other people know about that.
Thank you.
Chief Wright, John Webb with KHQ. On September 12th, there was a vandal alert that was sent out about a potential stabbing threat on Paradise Path. Does this have any connection with what we've seen so far?
Not that we know of it, but we're following up every lead. Every piece of information we get, we are following up to ensure that nothing has gone unturned. We want to have the individual identified, who is the suspect of this eventually. So we are literally looking into every aspect of everything.
Last question, if I could, Chief. Have we looked at any boyfriends or any ex-boyfriends, any spouses as a potential suspect?
I will tell you, we are looking at everyone. Every tip we get, every lead we get, there's no one that we're not going to talk to. There's no one we're not going to interview. There's no one that we're not going to look into. And we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to make sure that nothing goes unturned and that we do everything we can with the assistance of all the resources we have to get a final answer.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm Emma Epperly with this book's interview. Hi. So there were other roommates who lived at that residence. Were the roommates home at the time of the attack?
There was other people home at that time, but we're not just focusing just on them. We're focusing on everybody that may be coming and going from that residence.
So since they were home, was it a hostage situation?
No, it was not.
And then they didn't call it into police, so were they injured?
They were not injured, but like I said, we're still following up with everybody that could have been in that area.
And how can you say it's a targeted attack if you don't have a suspect?
Like I said, we take the totality of the situation. We try to make the best bit of information we can with everything that comes in, and then we make our decision off of that. So at this time, I'm not going to expand upon that. But like I've said, we do have a suspect out somewhere, and we are looking for that individual to solve this.
Hi, Rachel Sun, Northwest Public Broadcasting. I just want to clarify something you said earlier. Over the past couple of days, the information that we've been getting is there's not a threat to the public. And then earlier I heard you say you can't be sure that there is no threat. I just want to clarify what your stance is on that at this time.
So we still believe it's a targeted attack, but the reality is there's still a person out there who committed 4 horrible crimes. So I think we got to go back to there is a threat out there still, possibly. We don't know. We don't believe it's going to be to anybody else, but we all have to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're watching out for each other.
Okay, and then one other follow-up. I know you said when the call came in, it was for an unconscious person, and also that was a stabbing. It seems, just from an outside perspective looking in, like that would be not the first thing a person calling in would think.
You're right. But the report that we got was that it was an unconscious individual. It wasn't until our officers arrived on scene, went in to do caregiving check on the individual who was unconscious, that we found the scene that we found.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather Roberts with ABC News. Just to follow up on what she asked, so the other 2 roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information that we have from our investigation is that yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That is correct.
So is there any explanation as to why it took so long then for someone to call 911? You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning, and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. So, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still, to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay, and last question, are you able to tell whether the same weapon was used on all 4 victims?
That's why we're having the autopsies done. The autopsy will confirm that and hopefully collect some evidence for us, even from those. That's why you do the autopsies, is to try to be thorough and try to gather more. So we'll leave that. That would probably be something that would come out later. Okay.
Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders. May the victims rest in peace and may justice be served. This is the press conference. I believe it was the first press conference or the second. I found this question to be very important. The reporter clearly asked the chief, the surviving roommates being there as witness, what was the reason that they made the call at noon? So the officer said, the chief said clearly that he corrected her by saying, I did not say they were witness, I just said they were there. Now what kind of answer is that? At the start we were told that they were just there. We were told that Dylan Mortensen, one of the witnesses, the main witness, slept in the ground floor, the first floor. So how much proper information did the police and the chief had from the surviving roommates? This doesn't make sense. Either they were witness, which they are witness, because Dylan Mortensen said clearly that she saw a man with a mask. She said she saw a man with bushy eyebrows. That makes you clearly a witness. So make this make sense, Chief. Was she a witness? Was she a surviving roommate? Was she just there? How come there was a lot of misinformation going on? To be blunt, this doesn't make sense at all. The chief would have known from the start that Dylan Mortensen is a surviving roommate and a witness. Obviously, she's a surviving roommate because she survived. That's common sense. But a witness, definitely. Or did you all make her a witness later on during the investigation? The 911 callers having been released, although there were multiple people, why were they called to the scene first? The Sigma Chi boys. Were they the police? I don't think so. Were they the paramedics? I don't think so. Why were they called first? Was this a cover-up from the Sigma Chi boys and from the surviving roommates? Because let's not forget, a fight did happen in Sigma Chi with Ethan and Xana and some of the Sigma Chi boys. It got physical. Why was the chief and the police asking for the couple its timeline? Isn't that supposed to be information that they should have had from the start, since the Sigma Chi fraternity boys is a part of Idaho, Moscow?
Were the two other individuals present at the home when police responded at noon?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, if you don't mind elaborating a bit more on those two people. Was it two people? What have those people shared about the circumstances of that night, what they saw or didn't see?
Well, I'm not going to go into what they shared that night. Obviously, that's part of our investigation. That's part of the information that we're trying to build our complete story with. So, as far as that goes, we're not going to go any further into what they know and what they don't know.
How many were there?
We believe two.
Chief, have you looked into the social media accounts of all the different victims, and do you, we understand?
Why did the chief hesitate? We believe two. So weren't you certain at the start it was Dylan and Bethany? Were there other people in the house? Was the crime scene tampered with? It had to be, because allegedly the roommates couldn't open the door. So they called the Sigma Chi fraternity boys, who were Superman, I guess, who had to come and break the door or push the door open. I'm not being sarcastic, I'm being honest. Because isn't that the job of the fire brigade to come and open a door, to break in a door, and the police? So how come the police chief hesitated, and I said, I believe there were two. He didn't say straight out that there were two. So how much information did they have of Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk? Was all this statements of Dylan's, did it come late on in the investigation when they found the white Hyundai Elantra allegedly?
Mysterious murders of 4 college students in Idaho. Police are now focusing their search for clues in a new area. This as police still have not identified who might have killed Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Kaylee Gonsalves. But they are asking all in the community to be wary of speculation, saying they need time to properly investigate. Our Alex Capriello did ask police about this investigation and joins us with new details. Alex.
Hey, good morning to you, Adrian. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks since those brutal murders occurred in this home right here behind me. And so a lot of speculation and a lot of scrutiny is going into the police and their investigative work. After all, they still have no suspects and no persons of interest, at least as far as they've told us. I asked the police some of these tough questions about what they're doing at this moment and didn't get much of a response back. However, along the way, I learned that that could all be part of a greater strategy. Following new revelations that Kaylee Gonsalves had more significant injuries than Maddie Mogen, her best friend asleep in the same bed, Moscow PD remains quiet in their ongoing investigation. But new information this morning. Moscow PD says it analyzed a reported incident from October and discounted claims that Kaylee had a stalker. The police have narrowed in on an approximate 1 mile by 1 mile perimeter, asking anyone with at-home surveillance videos from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on the night of the murders to come turn it in. And there's still a cloud of mystery surrounding a nearly 5-hour window from 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. when Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were believed to be at the Sigma Chi fraternity house.
I'm Alex. I'm a reporter with News Nation.
I went to the fraternities and the sororities to find out what they remember.
Just that night, were you here? Was there a party going on or anything? Because the police have this huge window where they're trying to figure out what happened.
The chapter president says he's turned over all information to the police and to the FBI, saying there's nothing they know that the police don't. And keep in mind, there's around 65 different detectives and investigators among the FBI, the Idaho State the Idaho State Police and the Moscow Police that are all looking into this case. And that doesn't even account for the uniformed patrol and the extra support staff. These are all resources that are going into trying to capture.
I would tell you the same thing. To know her was to love her. Her love for life and everyone in it was so inspiring.